Welcome to Pensar Basketball, and today we're going to talk about how the Toronto Raptors are more than just a playoff team. And first, perhaps it is wise to define what is a playoff team. What do I mean by this? I think a playoff team is a team that's just happy to be there. I think it's a playoff team is a team that's happy to go win 45 games, 46 games, and not have any sort of process in terms of mindset of what can we do beyond this. I'm getting a temperature read. I'm reading the temperature of the fans. I'm reading the temperature of the team, and I'm sensing an imbalance. So let's talk about that imbalance. Last night, after the Toronto Raptors completed a very miraculous win towards the end on two back to back blocks by first Brandon Ingram and then Scotty Barnes, we saw a very interesting thing happen in the post game, which is specifically two guys who are leaders of this organization, which is Darko and Scotty Barnes, tempered the enthusiasm. It's not that they're forgetting to smell the roses. It just feels like this team has its eye on something a lot bigger than being 9-5. Scotty reiterated that it was a very young season, that anything could happen. We need to stay humble. Darko Rajakovic said that this will be a very interesting film study, in which basically he implied, and again, this is not Darko whisper. I'm not trying to read between the lines, but it's fairly obvious. He wasn't super thrilled about what the Raptors did yesterday, and yet they won. So clearly, wins and losses are not how great teams define themselves. I will remind you that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the OKC Thunder just won an NBA championship, and when asked about it, Shai said, "I don't think we played our best. I don't think that we played our best. I think that we need to do something more, right? I think we need to I don't think we showed our best. I don't think that this is the vision of OKC basketball that I had in mind." And that's what keeps you hungry. The striving of perfection, the striving of excellence, the continuous raising of the bar. Yes, we beat this team. Yes, we smacked them by 20, but we turned it over 15 times. We need to clean that up. Now, how do you balance that level of perfectionism and, perhaps psychotic pursuit of Perfektenschlag, to borrow a borrowed fake term from Dwight Schrute from The Office? Shout outs to Dwight Schrute. How do you balance that while also stopping to smell the roses? How do you reconcile that there are two things and they're both true? On the one hand, the Toronto Raptors were probably not supposed to be 9-5. On the other hand, could be 11-3. How do you balance that? Does anyone have an idea on how to balance that? This is something I struggle with myself, right? It's like, how do you not become a slave to your own ambitions? How do you sometimes just stop and realize there are some amazing things happening here? Today, I watched the entire internet react to the Toronto Raptors. It started, frankly, with a snowball of videos that came out last night from various content creators, some of the biggest content creators asking one mega question. Is this real? Are the Raptors really good? Have they turned a corner? Are we witnessing We the North again? There's obviously some people that are a little bit skeptical. They say this is the East. They face some depleted teams. There's some extraordinary shooting luck going on. And I will reiterate here, the Toronto Raptors have lost the second least number of games this season so far in terms of dollars lost to injury. So you've had a little bit of luck on your side. You have managed to get through 14 games of the season without sustaining, touch wood, a major injury to one of your major players. You've had some abysmal shooting from certain players. You've had some uncharacteristically hot shooting from certain players. There are guys who perhaps came into this season expecting to be non-shooters who are really just hitting their open shots when they're being left open. And then you have, maybe the unbridled enthusiast in me, which is saying, I'm watching this team and I think they can be better than this. This is not hating. When we say RJ Barrett needs to be better defensively, that's not hating. I don't think it's hating to say Scotty Barnes needs to be more assertive. I don't think that's hating. I hope Scotty Barnes knows that. I don't think that it's hating to point out the obvious point out the obvious flaws in Emmanuel Quickley's process through the first, 5-6 games. Can we talk about the last 10 games though for Emmanuel Quickley? There's another thing that perhaps needs to be addressed, which is the anchoring bias. Impressions, what you thought all offseason, your projections around certain players. I think a lot of us bought a lot of stock on certain players, sold a lot of stock on certain players. Maybe some of us were out on Grady Dick. Grady Dick has played well. Can we change our mind? I think some of us, 5 games into the season, were ready to ship Emmanuel Quickley away for 2 second-round picks. Can we change our mind on what we have seen since that moment? I do think that it matters who is playing well during the winning. I think that that matters because I think what right now the Toronto Raptors are unique because their lineup combinations are endlessly complex. Endlessly complex. If I take you through the number of different 5-man units that the Toronto Raptors have run out through the last 14 games, it is truly head scratching. There's so many lineups that have gotten 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes stints. There's not a lot of lineup continuity. There's not a lot, right? Sometimes you're playing Scotty, Bi, Sandro with Shed and Quickly for the first time ever. That lineup has literally never existed. Sometimes you're playing Bi with 4 bench guys, and sometimes it's still 4 bench guys, but one of the bench guys is a different bench guy. That changes everything. So I don't think the Raptors are trying to win basketball games as their big modus operandi right now. I don't think that Darko Rajakovic is going out in every single game and saying, come hell or high water, we must win this game. Darko Rajakovic said that during the fourth quarter, when the Raptors ended up in a close game with the Charlotte Hornets last night, he said, this could be good for us. He said that he was talking to one of his assistants and he was talking to himself and he said, this could be good for us. So, what is the last 14 games if not a pursuit of winning? Again, this is not the point. The winning is not the point. I don't think that winning 9 games is what this team has achieved. I don't think that's really what this team has achieved. I think what this team has achieved is far greater than what the 9 wins and 5 losses tell you. I think they have achieved culture shift. I think they have achieved status shift. I think they are on the precipice of achieving narrative shift. I think they are changing the way, hopefully, for the long term, how the league views their players, views this organization, and views this team. I think that this is more than a playoff team. Now, I'll tell you why I am even making this live, really, right? I really want to talk about this because I was telling my girlfriend about this earlier, and I was like, you know what? I think I really just need to talk to the community and I need to talk this out. I need to think this out in a very honest and real way. I was reading this quote and it said, you aren't, you feel that you aren't where you are right now, or you feel like you aren't where you want to be right now. But 2 years ago, just remember, you would have killed to be in this position. That's very true for a lot of us. Let's just be honest. Some of us 2 years ago had a job that we hated and a partner that we don't want to be with. And today we're quibbling over the fact that, we just got a parking ticket. But are we missing the forest and the trees here? A year ago, this team had a lot of questions, a lot of questions, a lot of questions, and a perhaps more murky future than they do today. This team was a laughingstock a year ago. A year ago, this Toronto media and a lot of Toronto Raptor fans questioned whether Darko Rajakovic, a coach of 30 years, could even coach basketball. They wondered if he knew anything about ATOs. I hope those questions have been answered. They wondered if this move around, set screens, and pitch ahead stuff that Darko was trying to do, the off-ball stuff, was it just floofy European crap, or was it really effective? And when some analysts, myself included, cautioned that the Toronto Raptors have some of the best shot quality index metrics in the NBA, they're just not hitting their shots. They didn't care because they were losing. Nothing matters when you're losing. Progress doesn't matter when you're losing. Do you know that the Toronto Raptors are the best team at scoring out of screens in the entire NBA? Does that surprise you? It's pretty elite. Do you know that the Toronto Raptors are a top 11 defense despite the way they started their first, the start of their season. And they are a top 10 offense. They are a top 6 half court offense. They are not a team that takes a lot of threes or hits a lot of threes. They are not a team that rebounds a hell of a lot. And they are not a team that protects the rim well. Why and how is this team successful? I think we are naturally curious and perhaps even skeptical of things that could be, doesn't make sense. If you have Luka Doncic and LeBron James and Anthony Davis and guys like that, maybe you can understand it. You have Wemby, you could understand. You don't need to pontificate too hard about why the Detroit Pistons are doing well. Their defense is elite. It's obvious. They have a guy who is heralded by many as a top 20 player. That makes sense. But what about the Toronto Raptors, the team that most executives around the league said had a very expensive, weird starting lineup, doesn't make a lot of sense. The depth is kind of overrated. These young players are too young, they're too inexperienced. This team doesn't make sense. Masai Ujiri's dug them in a hole. My God, we ourselves in this community and perhaps as Raptor fans broadly, we're discussing these very same topics less than 3 weeks ago. So what has changed? What has changed over the last 10 games? Let me point to some data over the last 10 games, and we'll take it from there. Here's the box plus minus of every single Raptor over the last 10 games, and you'll notice that there are going to be a couple of guys that are going to surprise you here, at least, for the better or for the worse. Over the last 10 games, Scotty Barnes, I'll go from top to bottom. Scotty Barnes, plus 6.8 box plus minus over the last 10 games. Pretty obvious to anyone who's watched. He's put up some master classes, but his bad games have not been bad games. His bad games have been meh, average, low level all-star. But his master classes over this 10-game stretch, like couple master classes that he's had, have been superstar stuff. So he ends up with a plus 6.8. Sandro Mamukelashvili, the guy who synergizes every single lineup, digs us out of holes every single game. The guy for whom a 5 for 11 night is a bad night. That guy, he's plus 4.5. Jakob Poeltl, the center who could not move to start the season. A lot of people were wondering, myself included, why the Raptors opted to extend him. He is plus 4.3. Immanuel Quickley, the guy who struggled so much with decision making, shooting, the guy who I have supported irrationally to an irrational degree over his first year and a half in Toronto, who blocked Pensar basketball on X, which triggered, a little bit of a, okay, we're going there. I'm going there. 5 games into this season was just like, you know what? 3 games into the season, I was like, this is not working. I'm not pleased with what the hell he's doing. Over dribbling the basketball, poor processing of the court, the low release. He has turned a mega corner. He is a plus 2.1 boxes minus over the 10 games, and it is getting better. He is shooting nearly 50% from the field, 42% from 3. He has been ridiculously efficient, and I think his defense is getting better. Brandon Ingram, the guy that you brought in to be your leading scorer, he has had some duds. He's had some good ones, but more than anything, perhaps the box score is not going to capture it, but I'm sure the EPM would, which is that he is drawing mega attention. Even last night, through the tough process of turnovers and some tough shots, he described after the game how he felt this need to, make the defense sink into him, right? He said that, Colin Sexton's too small to guard me. And honestly, I might have shot it if there were, if the second defender came over, I might have shot it over him too. I don't remember who the caller was that said it, but I think there was a caller who said Brandon Ingram took a shot over 2 defenders, and for the first time I found myself saying that's a good shot. Brandon Ingram over 2 defenders can be a really good shot. It can be a good shot. I think Brandon Ingram needs to operate above the line of, he's not above criticism. He's not that level of star, but he needs to operate above the line of your typical shot quality eye test. A good shot for Brandon Ingram and a good shot for Immanuel Quickley, quite frankly, has to be held to a higher standard than what a good shot for RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes, Grady Dick, and everybody else on this roster. And I say that specifically, yes, it was Daryl. I apologize. I say that specifically that Emmanuel Quickley is perhaps driving a train that nobody gives him credit for, but he is doing so many things. And while people are very easily able to acknowledge the effect of Ingram's driving and Barnes's defense and sorry, not Ingram driving, Barrett's driving, Barnes's defense, Barnes, cleaning up everything on the back end. They're able to at least acknowledge the rim presence that Jakob Pertl is, at least in theory, the rebounding, the screen setting of Jakob Pertl. They're able to acknowledge, Brandon Ingram's isolation scoring and his elite pull-up mid-range shooting. I feel like Emmanuel Quickley does not get enough flowers for fitting out as much as he has, for getting off the ball quickly, more quickly than he has in the past, for not over dribbling, for adjusting, and perhaps most importantly, for developing. I watched a ton of Emmanuel Quickley in New York, and I promise you, the player that you are watching right now is a fundamentally better player than that. Fundamentally, a considerably better player. He is a better processor of the game, although still not elite. He is a better passer overall. He is a better scorer overall. His handle has tightened. His use of the pick and roll, his ability to just develop. I don't think this guy's done growing, and I think he's getting better. And I think all the work that he put in this offseason is now paying off. I really do. Ingram will not shoot 25%, 27% from three. He is too good of a shooter, frankly. And I think right now he is still getting his legs underneath him. This will get better. Again, Jakob Pertl will get better as he gets more repetitions with the starting lineup. He is a smart player. The thing about smart anyone, really, just any intelligent a situation with an intelligent person or a group of intelligent people in a particular situation is that repetition helps. Reps help intelligent people more than they help unintelligent people. You have a group of very intelligent basketball players for the most part. RJ Barrett, who has caught a lot of criticism from me for his rim finishing and some of his processing and some of his, me first driving and wanting to score over three defenders. Even he, as stubborn as he may be sometimes, is a pretty smart basketball player. You have no real dummies on this team. None whatsoever. Not a one. Not a single one. They are all really good at it. Like, I promise you, the RJ Barrett stuff, like, there's a lot of people out there who think RJ is like a me first, kind of guy. I don't think he is. I think he's a score first guy who thinks about his offense more than he thinks about others. But his basketball IQ is so evident sometimes in his off ball cutting, in some of his flashes to space, in some of his relocations. He doesn't do enough defensively for sure, but he is trying. It's not a lack of effort. Sometimes it's a lack of attention. Sometimes it's bad habits. Sometimes it's a lack of motor. But, I think everybody on this team is trying to do the right thing. Even the guys who are struggling, like Jacoby Walter, Ochai Abaji, who are struggling immensely, are trying to do the right thing. I continue on with the box plus minus stuff. Ingram is a plus 0.5. So to recap, Barnes plus 6.8, Mamukelashvili plus 4.5. This is over the last 10 games, by the way. Jakob Pertl plus 4.3, Emmanuel Quickley plus 2.1, plus 0.5 for Ingram. And that's where we stop at the pluses. Everybody else, according to box plus minus, is losing their minutes over the last 10 games. That starts with Barrett at negative 0.6, Shed at negative 0.7, Murray Boyles at negative 1.3, and Grady Dick at negative 2.1. Now, again, nobody, no team, period, has 9 guys who win all their minutes. That is a dynasty. That is a super team. And that is, frankly, hard to do. There's always going to be some guys who are going to be a little bit negative and some guys who are going to be positive. And then hopefully you have a lot of minutes for some 2 or 3 guys who are extremely positive. That's how you get 60 win teams. Typically, I could look at any 60 win team and there are guys on their bench that are like negative 0.7, negative 2.0. Even some guys in their starting lineup might be like negative 0.2. That's where the negatives stop and the aggressive negatives start. And that's Jacoby Walter and Ochai Abaji. Jacoby Walter is a negative 7.4. He has played every single game of the last 10 games, sometimes 10 minutes, sometimes 5 minutes, but he is playing. And Ochai Abaji, who has not played every single game, but I will remind you, you are absolutely lossless in the games he has missed, which is to say, you have won every single game that he's missed. He is a negative 9.3. So, what if Darko Rajakovic really wanted to win every single game? What if he had the same approach to regular season success as Nick Nurse did in I was going to say 1920, in 2021, 2022? What if he decided to do that? I will remind you that the Toronto Raptors don't play a single player more than 34 minutes a night. Their minutes leader right now is 33 minutes a night for Brandon Ingram. They are not overplaying their starters, and they could. So, at least a part of why they have been relatively successful with managing to avoid injuries has to go to the coaching staff and their discipline to not try and eke out wins at the cost of long-term success. You are still trying to develop. Of course, Jacoby is a part of what you're doing. Jameson Battle, Ochai Abaji, these guys are all Grady Dick. Even when Grady has tough stints, the difference today versus a year ago with Darko's approach is simply put, if you struggle, he will take you out. He'll keep giving you opportunities, but now if you struggle, he'll take you out. If you struggle aggressively for 2 stints, you don't get your third stint. Somebody else is going to go in for you. If you struggle for 2 games straight, you end up in you end up in Ochai Abaji territory where you don't play. You just don't play anymore. I promise you that to some extent, uh, James Welsh saying, Rob, let's be fair. Darko has a deep roster. Nurse had trash projects on the bench. Darko developed this roster. Darko did not inherit a deep roster. Darko inherited Nick Nurse's mess. What has come out of that is whereas David Johnson and Delano Banton and Precious Achua and Gary Trent did not develop for you, who has developed for you is Jamal Shed and Colin Murray Boyles so far and Sandro Mamukelashvili. These are guys who are working out for you. Now, you want to say Darko, Nick Nurse didn't have bench. I'll argue that you don't have a single player on your bench with the pedigree, experience, and frankly talent level of an Otto Porter or a Thaddeus Young, right? If we're being honest, how much would a Thaddeus Young help right now? That version of Thaddeus Young that Nick Nurse had coming off his bench? Can we be real? It's not that. I think Darko is very good at getting the best out of players. I don't necessarily know if Nick Nurse was the greatest at getting the best out of players. He certainly didn't get the best out of some of the players on his roster. And I think that the idea here of egalitarian, if you play well, you will play. There is some upward mobility. Have you ever been in an office where you can't get a promotion? Have you ever worked at an office where the boss's son runs things and the woman that he's sleeping with gets a promotion over you? How motivated are you to do the best job you can? Being fair to players is the least of what Darko has accomplished. Again, I think the culture has shifted. I think the culture has drastically shifted. So let me tell you why I thought about this subject, and it's two-pronged. Number one, I was thinking about last night's live, and I was thinking about the live before that, and I was thinking about the Brooklyn Nets live, and I'm like, I know a lot of us deep down are very proud of this team. I know that we feel a sense of pride that we are Raptor fans and that we sat through this rebuild and are now reaping the rewards of it and are potentially now almost a lock to make the playoffs. I don't want to tempt fate. Obviously, things can happen throughout the season. Injuries happen. Luck can change. But you're looking at the schedule. You're looking at the East. You're looking at Giannis going down. You're seeing Darius Garland is still out. You see Jalen Brunson still out. You're seeing these teams falter. You know what the Indiana Pacers are doing. There's just way more bad teams in the West than we ever imagined. And so those Western Conference road trips don't seem as daunting anymore. And the Raptors, frankly, are just exceeding expectations. I think I had extremely high hopes for Sandro Mamukelashvili. Plus 4.5 boxes minus over 10 games is like beyond my wildest expectations. I had hopes that Jamal Shed could emerge potentially as a average backup point guard. He is currently playing as a top 10, top 15 backup point guard already. Like, He's good. He's really good. He's winning minutes. He's synergizing lineups. He's doing better and he's shooting well. I had hopes that Colin Murray Boyles would be positive by the year's end. He's almost already a positive player right now. Like he's barely losing his minutes, right? So you take all of that together and you're like the Raptors are ahead of schedule. So that's one part of it. Why are people still so upset? There's a lot of people that are really upset. I can feel it in the chat sometimes. There's like people who are upset with RJ Barrett. There are people who are upset with Scotty, for blowing their parlay. There are people who are upset with Ingram for not being a superstar. There are people who are upset with Yaka because of the contract. There are people who are upset with Quickley because of his contract. There are people who are upset with Masai for some reason. There's a lot of people who are upset. And I really don't want to feed into that because I'm telling you the truth. I'm not upset. I'm not upset. I feel holding this team to a higher standard is the right thing to do because I expect more from them, but I'm not upset. So far, according to Dunks and Threes, the Raptors have played the 20th hardest schedule so far. Okay. So that's the fair assessment. I think a lot of people think the Raptors have played a top 5 tough schedule. They haven't. They have beat a lot of teams that they should beat. They've beat a couple of teams that they shouldn't beat. And frankly, I don't think they've lost really any games that should have been definitive losses. Good teams beat the teams they're supposed to beat. The Raptors are doing that. But also really good teams, like the ones that I want to the one that I think the Raptors are trying to be, they win games like last night. They gut it out. You had a lot of things not going for you last night. The ball was sticking. There was a lot of turnovers. That team played with more force than you did. Objectively, if you weren't a Raptor fan and you just watched these two teams play for the first time, you were probably more impressed with the Hornets. Can we be honest? I mean, you were most impressed with the referees. What a job they did. Wow. Salute, 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 man. The refs were, let's give a hand of applause to the refs. Terrible refereeing. But honestly, this was a gut check win. This was a win that you probably shouldn't have gotten. I mean, going into it, you should have gotten it. But midway through the fourth quarter, this is easily one that could have slipped away. And frankly, for years, this is a win that slips away. Bad teams always lose games like this. Why? Because these are the teams that get the fingers pointing at each other. These are the teams that these are the games that make the problems come out. But last night the problems didn't come out. Scotty didn't touch the ball enough. Sure. Ingram touched the ball a little bit too much. Sure. RJ Barrett drove into traffic a few times. Sure. Grady Dick tried that crazy ass layup that didn't even stand a chance. Sure. There were a lot of defensive communication issues. Yes, you got out rebounded, but there was no finger pointing. Unlike the first 4 games, there was no bad body language last night. There wasn't. There was no soft quitting in the corner. There was no, passive aggressive rolling eyes on the bench. There wasn't really any of that. And this team, when push came to shove and winning was on the line, they won. Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes both described the blocks that they got. Ingram said, I knew I had to make a play on the ball. I knew I had to get us the ball back. I wasn't going to let him get an easy one. And frankly, I've never heard Brandon Ingram talk like that. Never. Followed his whole career. Never heard him talk like that. He is so locked in defensively right now. He may not be a great defender. He may not be a good defender, but he is average. And average is pretty good by BI standards as he works himself back from injury. Can he get better? Yes. I think he is actually becoming a better defender. Look, man, for years I've listened to coaches talk about challenging stars to defend better. I've listened to coaches talk about challenging RJ Barrett to be a better defender. I've listened to coaches talk about challenging Vince Carter to be a better defender. Honestly, this is the first time I'm really watching it come true. I'm watching a star player really buy into team concept and team defense. And I'm not saying it's the first time in NBA history it's happened, but it's the first time I've covered a team where a star player was challenged to be a better defender, and he's really obliging and doing his best. He's active in the passing lanes. So when Scotty Barnes was asked about it, very interesting comment that he made during the last night's post game. He said that was my man. I didn't box out. Miles Bridges was my man. He took the shot. I didn't box out. I had to go get us that block. This is the talk of a real leader. A real leader takes ownership that was my mistake. My man should have never gotten the rebound. I was the one who was supposed to block him out. I didn't block him out. Don't credit me too much. I just cleaned up my own mistake. It's what he said. And I think that that gives you the picture of what this team can do. So that's one reason I really wanted to talk about this, this live, because honestly, I feel like people aren't fully appreciating just what a monumental shift in tone and effort that this season has been. It's not like this team wasn't good last year. It's just the focus and structure towards winning in these close moments. How many close games did the Raptors blow last year? Does anyone have a record of that? Anyone have a stat on that? I will tell you, the Raptors were in so many close games last year. 2 games, 3 points, 2 points, 4 point game down the stretch, 4 point lead, 3 point lead. If it was that close, you knew the Raptors were going to lose. You knew the Raptors were going to lose almost every single time last year. They almost never won close games last year. They, I think, at one point were leading the league in clutch losses. So to win a game like that shows insane growth regardless of how you got to that moment. Forget everything that happened before and focus right on that moment where the game is hanging in the balance. You win that game. You don't win that game last year. I'm telling you, like, we lost everything last year like that. So again, that's one reason I wanted to do it. The second reason I wanted to do it is because I woke up this morning and I was pretty sad. I was pretty sad because I told my girlfriend, I said, she's like, "Why are you sad? Like, what's going on with you? Like, you seem not happy." And I said, "I think I'm not going to be able to pay off my mortgage this year. I thought I was going to get there. I thought I was so close in September. I had all this optimism. Oh, the membership bonus is going to come. The PC check's going to come. This is going to be there. That's going to be there. This thing, whatever." And then a couple of financial things come your way. It takes this away, takes that away, and you miss it. And I sat there and felt sorry for myself, and I said, like, I'm not gonna be able to do it. I'm failed. I failed. I'm such a failure. And that was when it dawned on me. I wasn't even supposed to do this. I wasn't supposed to pay off my mortgage this year. I had a goal in my mind to pay off 20,000 off my mortgage. When did I start thinking I was going to pay off my whole mortgage? The truth is, the minute YouTube sent me that email saying this is the membership bonus, that's when my mind started dancing. But wait a second, I have eclipsed the goal that I set for myself on January 1st, 2025 by like 100%. I have literally lapped my goal. I worked so hard to do this thing and make it come true. And now I will fall probably 5 to 7% short of that ultimate goal. And then I had to, and I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling bad about it. I'm like, whoa, I can't believe I didn't do that. It's like, bro, people don't pay off their mortgage in a year. What are you, insane? This is not a normal goal. I set an exceptional goal and I'm going to fail. I know I'm going to fail. I have 42 days, 43 days left in the year. I can't make up this money in 43 days. So I know I'm going to fail. But what is lost in the failure is a tremendous success, is the fact that I tried my best. I did a really good job and I exceeded the initial goal that I set for myself by like 100%. How can I possibly be sad unless I am, in fact, crazy? So the question is, yes, RJ missed a rotation. Yes. Yes, he did. If you walked into this season thinking RJ wasn't going to miss rotations, you might have problems. Yes, Scotty Barnes has had in and out games offensively. Sure. RJ is going through a shooting slump. Sure. He went through one. He's hopefully out of it. Scotty will inevitably go through a shooting slump. And this will not be a reason to crash out, because what I'm going to say hopefully hits home for you. You've lapped your expectations by 100% already. Now, how do you deal with that reality? How do you deal with the reality that you are clipping your expectations by 100%? I mean, let's be real. I have everything that I've said about the Raptors on record. All these videos are recorded, they are stored publicly, and they are free for anybody to go back and watch what I've said about this team for years, which means if at some point I said Brandon Ingram is trash, which I've never said, by the way, then that's just on the record. That's clippable and people can post it and be like, remember this time that you said Brandon Ingram was trash? So it is important to not be too overreactionary in these moments. But I think that one thing that has just caught me is that I predicted that the Raptors would start like, I looked at the record, I looked at all the games they were supposed to play, and I predicted that this team would start like 4-11, 5-10. They've almost inversed that. Win tomorrow and you will start 10-5. I predicted you start 5-10. I was predicting that maybe as the schedule softens up after this Philly game, maybe if you can get close to 500 by the 20 game mark, we can now talk about making upgrades. Right now, to get close to the 500 mark, you could lose the next 9 straight, or wait, hold on, next 6 straight, and you could still be at close to 500. I'm not saying you should lose 6 straight. This is not the Raptors should lose motivation because they're further than they thought they were. No, this is a moment to stop and smell the roses for a second. This team is playing incredibly hard. This team worked really hard this offseason. They have players who have taken a lot of shit from a lot of different fan bases, including their own. Scotty Barnes has taken endless maligning from this fan base, from some of you, probably, from a lot of the media. His work ethic has been questioned. His desire to play basketball has been questioned. His propensity to win has been questioned. Brandon Ingram is a player who has taken a lot of shit from this fan base, by the way, a lot from this media. When Brandon Ingram was traded, the vast majority of Raptors media said, why? Why this? Why now? He's not good enough. He's too injury prone, etc., etc. And yet, right now, I'm seeing this guy being dragged all over the internet for throwing a fucking cup. Do you know the context of when he threw that cup? Do you know the emotion that was going through that guy's head when he came up and he pulled that hamstring and he thought that he might have a hamstring strain? I don't know if it's obvious to anybody. I don't know who reads human beings like for a living. I don't read human beings for a living, but I certainly do my best to do a good job of it. I've done a lot of reading on in terms of like interpreting actions, interpreting body language and stuff like that. I can tell you from day one, Brandon Ingram coming to Toronto to last night, the unbridled enthusiasm over making those game-winning blocks. I can tell you that Brandon Ingram is so humbled and gracious for this opportunity. He's like, I joked with Daryl last night that he's been playing for like 40 people for like the last 5 years. And I'm not joking. I have seen clips of New Orleans, games. 40 people might be stretching it, but there's definitely games where they report that there's 10,000 people there. They'll be lucky if there's 1,000 people, 2,000 people there. It is an embarrassing atmosphere. It's bad, right? So when I think about it, I look at Brandon Ingram and I say, this is a guy who is trying to change a narrative about himself. The narrative is he's overpaid, he's soft, injury prone. And I can just imagine in that moment that he flung that cup, that there was a moment that he was reacting to from, oh no, now they're going to say I'm injury prone again. Despite my best efforts to rehab, despite my best efforts to be patient with my body, strengthen myself as much as I have, work as hard as I could in the off season, my body just gave out again. You don't get it if you're not an athlete, if you've never been through an injury, but I've talked to plenty of athletes who've gone through injuries. That shit is mortifying. And yet, all I hear online, Brandon Ingram's not a good person. Brandon Ingram's not a good person. Look at that poor towel boy. Fuck the towel boy, man. I'm not even trying to be mean about it, but like for real, come on, man. This is your star. This is one of your star players. Okay. I'm not excusing the behavior. I'm saying have a little empathy in that moment. This has happened to Brandon Ingram a lot throughout his life. There's been moments and he's been judged by those moments forever. Team USA, a single playoff game, a random interview where it circulates online that he looks high. These are character assassinations. Emmanuel Quickley, another guy who has taken a lot of shit from a lot of people. In New York, he was considered, a godsend and everything, but they loved him. But frankly, I don't think Raptor fans have necessarily embraced Emmanuel Quickley. I think I did early, but even I sort of, felt I was turning my energy towards him. And this is a guy who's worked insanely hard. And all he gets to hear online is, I can't believe we're paying you $32.5 million. Right? Jakob Hurtle, again, the contract overpaid. I myself, oh no, I can't believe we traded two first round picks, first round pick for Jakob Hurtle. Again, there's a lot of people on this team. Even Jakob Hurtle had his own story of getting traded from a championship team. This is a team of people who have been counted out. Jamal Shed was told he was too small. Jameson Battle was told he looked funny and frankly that he shot funny, moved funny, and didn't look like an NBA player. There's a lot of guys. Jacoby Walter was supposed to be a top 5 pick. He fell all the way to 19, being told by a lot of people, I don't think you pass well enough. There's a lot of people on this team that have been counted out. Colin Murray Boyles, this is a 3-star recruit who was told that he would never, ever amount to an NBA prospect. Because I guarantee you, in high school, this guy was told 100 times, you ain't going to the NBA. You are not picked as 3-star recruit by any recruiting service if you have even a sniff of NBA potential. Every 0-star, 2-star, 3-star recruit who has ever made it to the NBA has done so against the odds. Jonathan Mobo, similar thing. You're too small in high school to play basketball. Now you go JUCO, can't reverse the JUCO trend. There's a stigma around it. This is a team of underdogs. Chucky Hepburn is an underdog. Everybody is an underdog on this team, pretty much. Like all these guys, Scotty Barnes, everything you look about online, Scotty Barnes, autistic. So look, this is a team that is on the precipice of proving a lot of people wrong. And they are doing so with a lot of bravado, a lot of pride, and frankly, apart from like 6 minutes a game, by playing the right way. I think there's a lot to celebrate here. And I think that there's a lot to be really proud of and a lot to get enthusiastic about. I was listening to Kevin, I think it was Kevin O'Connor. No, it was not Kevin O'Connor. It was the other guy. Man, the ringer. Who am I thinking of? I'm forgetting his name. He covers the Memphis Grizzlies. I am forgetting his name. Maybe you remember his name. But anyways, and he was talking about listening to the Raptors broadcast. No, it is not Zach Lowe. It is the guy who has absolutely zero facial hair and low key looks like he's 12 turning on 45. Does that make sense? It's not Zach Lowe. Zach Lowe does not look like he's 12 turning on 45. I'm forgetting his name right now, but it will come to me at some point, and then I'll be like, oh, I can't believe it. I can't believe I forgot about him. But nevertheless, he was talking about listening to Matt Devlin call the game, and he said it's so unique and so interesting to watch a team do it for the first time, right? When you think about the Detroit Pistons last year, they really broke through and did it for the first time, right? Like, obviously, not the first time in franchise history. That's a team that's won 3 championships. But I'm saying that group of individuals that was called the worst team in NBA, right? That team ultimately broke through and made the playoffs. That was a story. That was a huge story and a feel-good story. And it ended in a playoff loss. But nevertheless, I think it was a really great story. There have been stories like this before. The Raptors have been on the other end of this story many times. They've been a bad team that's been counted out, et cetera, et cetera. And then we had We the North, right? They were a team that, what the hell are they doing? I can't believe they traded DeMar DeRozan for a guy who, wait, let the ink dry on that newspaper, and boom, they're winning a championship with Kawhi Leonard. This is a team that is basically, defined by being counted out. And last night, I wouldn't blame you if you thought they were going to lose this game, but they didn't count themselves out. And I think that that's some sort of resiliency that comes from being counted out your whole life. I talked about the late bloomer effect or that. And I think that that is really what this team is about. So yeah, more so than anything, this live was about stopping to smell the roses. Yes, there are problems on this roster. Hopefully they will get addressed. Maybe they will be addressed by 1 or 2 main pieces going the other way, or maybe it'll be addressed on the margins. Maybe it'll be addressed by the Raptors choosing to be a tax team and finally using that 15th roster spot and using it on a big that is actually weirdly serviceably good. There are a lot of guys who are going to get waived at the deadline. There are guys who are going to get bought out. Maybe the Raptors get one of those guys, and now you have your center. You have your backup center. There's no guarantee that RJ Barrett or anyone really on this team is going to get moved. What is a guarantee, in my opinion, right now, is that the Raptors are heading for the playoffs. What they do when they get there is anyone's guess. But if I had to guess right now, in terms of why I have been such a stickler for the details with this team, I think this team has enough around experience, enough length, enough defense, enough shooting talent, enough theoretical potential, enough scoring, I don't think the numbers are lying to you. I think they really are this good. I think that this team could win a round in the playoffs. I really do. I think they're that close. There aren't like 3 teams. There aren't more than 3 teams in the Eastern Conference that I would definitively pick us to lose against. And frankly, if we head towards home court advantage, we probably will avoid playing all those teams. You know what I mean? Like, I don't love our chances against the Pistons because I think Jalen Duren is just going to kill us on the offensive glass, and they do basically like our 3 games against the Pistons, if they're healthy, are probably 2 losses at best. At best. That's not a team you want to face. I walked into the season thinking Cleveland wasn't a team we wanted to face, and then Darius Garland goes out, and maybe you want to face them. I don't think that we deal too super well with Mitchell Robinson and Karl Anthony Towns. I don't love that matchup for us, but I do think it's winnable. It's winnable. But apart from those 3 teams, who is really scaring you here? What team is really scaring you? Scared of the Orlando Magic? Yeah, I'll watch Scotty and Ingram outplay Paolo and Franz. I can certainly see that. I don't think Emmanuel Quickley is materially a worse player than Desmond Bane, and so far this season, he's been materially better, right? So again, there's a lot of teams like Atlanta, Orlando, Milwaukee that were like potentially threatening, teams like Philly. Whereas right now, I think the Raptors have what it takes to beat these teams. And I think that this team knows it. And so when Scotty Barnes says we need to stop, we need to stay humble. It's just the start of the season. You know what he's doing? He's acting like he's been there before. He's exercising a little bit of humility. Brandon Ingram yesterday said when we get to the playoffs. He didn't say if we make it to the playoffs, we might make it to the playoffs. He said when we make it to the playoffs. When. And I think that Darko Rajakovic has been building towards this for 2.5 years. And he is also a man who has been counted out numerous times. He is a man who's been overlooked for promotions. He's a man who's been overlooked for jobs. He is a person who comes from a very small place in the world and has ventured through a tremendous amount of work and courage to get to this point. One of the things that uh, they set Chris Vernon, that's who it was. That's who I was thinking about. Sorry, guys. I couldn't think of it. One of the things Chris Vernon says was it was so interesting. It was so obvious that Darko was authentic when he handed Brandon Ingram the chain. He said, you can feel it, like it's palpable. The authenticity of this team is palpable. The energy around this team is palpable. It's palpable from the on-court reaction to Brandon Ingram's dunk. It's palpable from the reaction to Scotty's big block and the walk-off and the graphic in the image, that picture that we see in the on the screen, right? It's all palpable. Like you can see all of the enthusiasm in this one picture right here. Let me pull it up. Sorry. This right here. This picture right here. This picture says everything. It might be one of my favorite Raptor pictures of all time. Everybody's happy. Everybody's celebrating. Everybody's proud. And you can hear it in the broadcast. You can hear it, with the fan base. Look at the fans in the back. They're celebrating. You should frame this. I should frame this. We should all frame this picture because this picture is a reminder of when the Raptors did something or started to do something. And I've talked about turning points in a season. Every good team has turning points. Sometimes it's a trade. Sometimes it's a big win. Sometimes it's a big loss. Sometimes it's a losing streak. Every team hits their breaking point and hits plateaus, hits milestones throughout a season. I know that it is weird to say this, but I think this team has already had 3 extremely character defining victories this season. Character defining victory number 1, I will reiterate, was the Cleveland Cavaliers game where Jamison Battle came in and bailed you out. That game, the body language was awful. And somehow through the fourth quarter, something happened where everybody stopped being tense and being weird and just started celebrating what Jamison was doing. Right. The second big character win was Philly, a game you lost. but a game where you undermanned, went out and tried your best and refused to get blown out. That to me was the second character defining victory of this season, and it came in a loss. The third character defining victory came last night. And yes, an undermanned, completely depleted Cleveland team, and a struggling at times, but you are on a back-to-back Philly team, and the lowly Charlotte Hornets probably doesn't sound like, oh, we beat the Thunder and then we knew we arrived. You're probably not going to beat the Thunder, and that's okay. That's not the point. The point here is this is a young team. This is a team that is new to each other. And this is a team that I truly believe is playing for each other, playing the right way, put in a ton of work this offseason, and frankly, is a team that's been counted out for way too long. I think it should resonate with a lot of Raptor fans. This is a team that, in a lot of ways, you may not realize it yet, has been constructed in the city's identity in many ways. And the reason that We the North marketing and that team resonated so hard is precisely because it was full of people who had been counted out, tossed away. Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan, Jonas Valanciunas. These are all NBA afterthoughts, and that was what made it a fun story. I often wear a sweatshirt that says "Story over everything." I am, in fact, currently wearing a sweatshirt that's a story over everything. The Toronto Raptors are about to be one of the most beautiful stories in the NBA. I can't wait to cover it every single night. And I know that sometimes we will not agree about individual players, individual performances. Sometimes we won't agree with the usage of some guy or which lineup Darko used, or maybe we won't agree with the shot selection of Scotty or Brandon Ingram down the stretch. But what we can agree on, and hopefully we can all agree on, even the Shannons of the world can agree with, is that this team is a lot more fun to watch this year than they have been last year and the year before. That all of this tanking and soft tanking and development reps and all this stuff is finally paying fruit. I hope that you enjoy the shit out of this season. Don't get too dragged up in the small negatives. Don't get dragged up in the trade rumors, the tank talk. After two losses, be like, oh, maybe we should have tanked. Don't get too dragged up in that. Don't get too dragged up in the draft talk. Get just dragged up in the idea that you are going to witness this team go to the playoffs this year. All right. You're going to witness this team go to the playoffs this year and hopefully give one team a hell of a run in the first round. All right. I'll talk to y'all later. Have a great evening. And if you would like to hear more from me, I will be on playback tonight at 11 o'clock with Player's Choice. If you would like to hear even more of me, Player's Choice today on the panel, we did the first hour was on the Toronto Raptors, ironically. So you won't believe that, but yes, it was. And it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. I felt quite proud being up there. I was very happy that I got to be on the show about the Toronto Raptors, and I kept it very real. I said that this team has not played its best basketball yet. I truly believe that they will turn another gear at some point. And when that defense starts clicking, when the offense starts clicking, honestly, this is going to be like better than Light the Beam. It's going to be, it might even be, honestly, you want my truth? You want the honest truth? This is going to be better than We the North Part 1. It's going to be better. You're a more talented team than that team was. The East is more open than it was. There's no LeBron here. This is going to be better. This is going to be better than We the North. Peace, y'all.